Well, hey there, YouTube. This is this is Al reporting to you from California, and I just want to make a little YouTube uh, about what's been going on in my life. 50% for me, and actually 100% for me, and maybe it will overflow into your life and make your life a little better. And maybe give you some inspiration or something. I don't know. Who knows? We can never know these things. They just happen. So, show you what I've been working on. What's been my deal, my conflict, my petty neurosis of the month. It's been regarding this project that I've been working on. Anyway, okay. So now I gotta show you. I'll tell you what's going on. Okay, here it goes. So this is a cab over camper, and it is on the bed of a 96, 95 Tacoma pickup. And yesterday, I took it on the freeway, and I was getting on the on-ramp, and I was going about 35, going up to 40, and I started hitting these little things in the road, these little indentations in the pavement, and my car started doing this. And and I kept going, and it started to get not getting better. so I had to slam on the brakes, and I pulled over to the side, and then I drove on the highway at like 25 miles an hour until I made it back home. And I was pissed because I had this suspension work done, and I thought it was going to make it a better ride, and it made it a worse ride than using the AutoZone helper suspension springs, which were like $25. Because anyway, so I had it professionally done, and it didn't get much better. And so I was a little bit pissed, and kind of like this morning, like, should I just give up? The door's closing. And then, yeah, and so now I'm like, should I should I keep going? Should I put the helper springs back on? Etc. Etc. Honestly, I don't know the answer, and honestly, it's probably pretty sketchy that I put the camper on the Tacoma in the first place, because it's not the proper weight. But this is where it's kind of getting into a thing of like positive thinking or whatever, like, oh, it's gonna work, because it does work, but it's kind of scary. And then it's like discerning how much of it is my limiting belief of what is or what isn't possible, and also how much energy I'm willing to invest in making it perfect or making it usable, which is all I care about, is that it's usable. So it seems like I'm noticing it. My psychology too is like when I'm like feeling happy about it or inspired with the original inspiration of it, which was like, I get a mobile house now. Time for a mobile house. Time to go surfing every day. Time to go to anywhere I want, including South America. maybe not. I don't know. But basically, like, yeah, like a freedom mobile, and that was my original notion, and it's turning out to be a lot of work because it's an old camper and an old truck, and they don't really go together that good, and I kind of signed up for it, and my parents are very kind of like, should I say, logical. And they're like, "Oh, you should just get a new truck." And I kind of agree with them sometimes, especially when I'm feeling fearful, of like how well the truck's gonna do. But ultimately, it seems like there's like the option of living fearfully, and then there's the option of living inspired in spirit. And yeah, basically those are two options, because if it does fuck up on the road, I'll either crash, which is not good, but um, I think that there will be some warning signs before that happens. And like yesterday, and so I'm probably gonna put those caliper springs back on because it was running fine with that. And then there's the option of being like, oh, like feeding the fear of like, oh, I'm gonna crash. Like I need to make it. Oh, I get a F-150 diesel. I need to get a diesel truck now and all this shit. And essentially, I guess what I'm saying is that there's there's a core fear in every human being that the mind takes evidence and then it mashes it up and turns it into this fear. So it goes information that doesn't isn't appealing because it involves us, should I say, thoughts that involve us perishing, which spark a fear of death in us, which immediately kicks in this reaction of, I don't want that, I want the other thing. That's how politicians manipulate the public. That's how that's how terrorists manipulate the public. Not to say that there's much of a distinction between politicians and terrorists. In fact, they're probably pretty much the same thing. Or at least the politicians are as much beneficiaries of the terrorists as the terrorists are of having something to fight against. So, yeah, so that's going out with my truck. So it's like, how there's this kind of like knowing sense of like, yeah, like I know this is going to work if I do this, and I know. And then there's kind of like, it's just the balance inside of like when I can tell that I'm being stupid and I need to just stop for a second and take a breath and calm down. Usually when I'm playing out some kind of like mental fantasy of like, I'm gonna be like this and like that, and like really that's, I mean, we are like these fantasy dream web bodies, and our imagination is the tool that changes our normal reality into whatever we want it to be. And then there's the process of navigating the physical plane in order to have it synchronize with our imaginal higher realms in order to harmonize our lives, so we're not stuck in the physical plane of fear and fear of perishing. And I mean, we're, I don't know, like given this life. It's not like when we came out of the womb we were like, you put me back in, like I don't want to die, so I'd rather not be born. It's like, it's, I guess what I'm saying is that death is a part of life. Death is life. Life is death, and can avoid it, avoid the knowledge that we are going to pass away, or we can just accept that it happens. And once you do that, then it's like, oh yeah, like I was given this life for how much did it cost? Oh yeah, nothing. And did I choose it or did I not choose it? I don't know. Some people say that we choose our incarnation. I don't know, but it didn't cost anything, that's for sure. So got nothing to lose really, because maybe it'll be given again. You don't know, but you can be grateful for the gift, even though you know it's gonna go away. It's like kind of like if somebody gives you a horse. You know that the horse is gonna die eventually, so. But it's not like you don't enjoy the horse while you have it, or love yourself, you know? But when the horse dies, it's not sad because you have lived it. You have enjoyed hanging out with it and playing with it. It's kind of like our lives are like the same way. It's like our lives don't have to be sad. They're only sad if you're not enjoying it the way it is now. I mean, death is only sad if you feel like you didn't ever live, so to speak. But death loses its sadness when you've lived happily, and then the death actually becomes makes the happiness more meaningful in a profound way. So, keep living happily. I like the example of a bird going upon the treetops and letting out its song in the morning. Like this little tiny bird. That thing is not, I mean, it might be afraid. It flies away, but it's kind of like it doesn't live in perpetual fear. As humans, we have this ability to control, try to think that we're in control of things. And it's all not true. It's like we have a limit to what we can actually control. So the sort of the thing of being here now comes in. I think, not to get too heady, but the processes of mental abstraction were kind of these, they are an aspect of our higher thinking, and it can go awry when the illusion of, should I say, our selves as actors, as people, beings that can control things. And my name's Alex, and I'm 6'2", and I'm a California boy, and I'm making this cab over camper, and all my future and past expectations and all this stuff that's not real. That is with me, kind of like these thought memories that can keep you limited, but then you're like trying to control the present moment so that it doesn't, it's kind of like you went through this whole gamut of like positive and negative experiences, and then you're like, oh God, like I don't want those negative experiences again. So of course, naturally, your brain goes like, okay, how can I avoid all those negative experiences and only get the positive experiences? And then it's trying to control everything, and then your brain is getting in the way of actually having negative and positive experiences in the present moment. And so the issue is not the having the negative. positive experiences, and they're not really negative or positive, but they're just kind of like different vibrational frequencies, I guess. And I guess we're like attracted to certain ones and not as attracted to other ones. But I don't know, the kind of thing with like being in a high vibration all the time is that it gets really boring, and then you're like stuck there because you're too afraid of coming down, and then you're like, I'm too afraid of coming down, and then it's like, oh, you're going down anyway because you're afraid of going down, and then you're like, oh, like I'm low, like I want to get back to there, and then you're like struggling, but like the trying to get back up to there is like the struggle inside. So then it's essentially like we have this like highly developed cognitive system that has been, it's kind of like taking a bicep muscle, it's like this, and like say you're working out, like you're trying to get like your whole body in shape, and like you're like, all right, I'm ready to do the workout, and like you turn on the workout, and the whole workout is this. And they're like, all right, just 2,000 more reps, 2,000 more biceps, and eventually you get these really strong biceps. And that's basically what our what I do to our kids. Like, you go, here's a math problem, here's a paper, here's another math problem, and then the kids they go like this, and then so everything in life looks like that. Even though, so we have the equivalent of like huge biceps, like basically right here, which is called the prefrontal cortex, which basically like takes everything and puts it into a category, and it says that's good or bad. It's kind of like from the movie Predator, with like the Predator guy is like going around like target, you know. And so our brains are kind of like that. It's kind of like continually categorizing coins. It's like, this is a quarter, this is a dime. And if things don't fall into the category, then the brain has like a malfunction, and it doesn't like it. Doesn't like it at all. And so we're all doing this wearing these goggles of our own perceptions, but really it's just like, all of that doesn't. It's just a survival mechanism. But so if we can kind of transition into a more, what Don Juan and Carlos Castaneda call it, like owl eyes, or like soft eyes, or soft vision, and then it's not as predatory, and in fact enables different parts of the brain that are not involved with the warring sense of trying to get them more peaceful. So they're just like more like becoming aware of like our whole, sticking your arm out to the side and being like, whoa, I can see, being aware of your periffs. You got to use your peripherals. What do you see? What do you see over 6 o'clock? It's 3 o'clock. It'll be either a ficus or a rubber tree plant. That's a 40-year-old virgin reference. Check that movie out if you have not seen that one. Anyway, have a great day. Stay positive. Keep the vibes. We keep vibing the vibe train. Keep riding the vibe train. And always be sure to ride the vibe train, and be sure to subscribe if you want to get on the vibe train, also known as the Stoke train. Stoke train is something that my friend told me about when I was about 17. And Stoke train is always coming. It's always coming and going. Actually, Stoke train is always pulling into the station. There's always a Stoke train. Every single moment, there's like infinite Stoke trains. And when you hop on one, you can ride it for a long time until you get off. And then what happens is you can get onto another Stoke train. All aboard. Have a good day.